A Bali villa rental, renting a villa in Seminyak, renting a villa in Canggu. It's a dream for a lot of people nowadays. This is Tom from Wage Freedom. What I have for you today is 5 specific tips on how to go about renting a villa in Bali, okay? 5 tips and 2 sort of bonus tips, one of which is not going to win me any friends with local landlords, okay? But this was prompted by a Wage Freedom reader, or actually a watcher of my YouTube channel. His name is Brian, and I'll give it to you verbatim. Brian asks, other YouTubers are showing their beautiful Bali villas, all included on their channels, renting at $450 to $650 a month. Are they blowing smoke out of their... He says it's very hard to get the lowdown on YouTube. Brian, I think you've got some poetic talent if you just continue that writing, my friend, okay? But seriously, thank you for the question. Okay, so how can you minimize, no matter what your budget is, okay, how can you minimize the amount that you'll spend for a villa? Now, these are in no particular order, but the first tip I'd give you for trying to rent a Bali villa, no matter how much money you come with, this would apply. You can find villas for several $100s a night, or even more here in Bali. For sure you can, okay? But you can find nice villas for several $100s a month here. A lot of times the difference is a matter of how many rough edges the villa has, and is that acceptable to you? There's a wide disparity, or a wide range of, let's say, how well these villas are fit out. A few rough edges, okay? Example, water spots on the wall. Areas of the walls, inside walls that maybe aren't painted as perfectly. Maybe a little bit of mildew. It's very, it's damp around here for much of the year. The landscaping is probably going to be beautiful and green, but maybe it's not perfectly manicured, okay? Does that matter? If you've got 3 or 4 or 5 or more bedrooms, do they all necessarily have to have air conditioning, okay? Maybe only the room that you sleep in, or you and your friends sleep in, if you're splitting it, needs to have air conditioning at night. Maybe the furniture is a little outdated or worn, does that matter to you? Maybe some of the kitchen appliances aren't brand new, okay? All these things, take them into account, because they can radically change the amount that you'll pay every month, and if nothing else, they're bargaining chips, right? If everything's not perfect, okay? So this will become clear as you look around, how big the gap is between pretty much perfect, 99% of the way there, and a few rough edges. And remember that if there are some rough edges, you can make a deal with the landlord or the property manager, or try to make a deal that you'll fix a few things, buy a few things that you're going to want. Maybe they can split the cost. A lot of times they'll tell you the story, and you think you're splitting the cost, and they will not end up splitting, reimbursing you, okay? So be careful doing that, but at least this can be the basis for bargaining. Tip number 2, proximity to the beach. It should be obvious, but you can pay, if you're within a couple hundred yards or meters from the beach, I mean, for a given villa, I mean, it could be twice or 3 times or even more than it would be if it's, say, a couple kilometers away, a mile or 2 away from the beach. If you're not dead set on being walking distance to the beach, then do not pay for it, okay? And you could find yourself paying a heck of a lot less, okay? In places like Seminyak, Canggu, certainly in Legian, if you're near the beach, I mean, real estate prices can be basically Western prices. Yeah, and as far as Ubud goes, I mean, it's not near the beach anyway, so, if it's not important to you to be near the beach, but you still want to have some infrastructure around, Ubud is quite an ideal spot for that, because then, it's not hard to be a little ways outside of Ubud, but still close enough to infrastructure, and of course you will be a little under an hour from the beach in Ubud. But again, if that doesn't matter, don't pay for beach proximity, long story short, if you don't need it, right? Okay, another one, and this is a big one. If you do not necessarily need a pool, don't pay for it. You can get very nice villas without pools, okay? For a lot of people, their vision of a Bali villa rental has got to include a pool, and I get it, but if you aren't absolutely set on a pool, just know that you will, it's a way to pay less for a given villa, okay, if it doesn't have a pool. So here's a tip number 4 that won't be for everybody, but something to think about. If you're coming as a single person or a couple, you might think about renting a room or a couple rooms in a villa, sharing it with other people, getting some roommates, okay? We all know that this can be a disaster if chemistry-wise, if a roommate situation doesn't work out. But I have had a lot of friends and acquaintances have very good experiences renting enormous villas with other people. A lot of Bali villas are 6, 8, 10 bedrooms or even more, okay? Enormous houses. And remember that they're virtually always going to have outdoor areas as well, okay? So the idea of splitting your house with 6 other people might seem completely nuts if, in a lot of the Western world, you'd feel crowded and everything, but not necessarily in Bali because of these outdoor areas, the shared spaces, swimming pool area most likely. The other thing is, you're in the tropics, people tend to not sort of hang out at home all the time anyway. So, even if you were sharing with a few or several other people, you might not see them a whole heck of a lot. That's all that I'm saying. So, and the other thing is, if you do this, you could potentially get yourself into a house, into a property that is just something that you could never ever afford on your own. And I mean, world-class type villas, right? If you're willing to share with a few or several other people. So that's exciting. There are Facebook groups that will, Bali Digital Nomad Facebook groups and other Facebook groups that, people. If you go the roommate route, because travelers and digital nomads are always moving around anyway, people are always leaving, coming and going, so rooms do come available. So it's a really viable way to even for months and months, or at least to get your get started here for a few months or several months to share with roommates. It could, as always, it could be really, really good, or it could be bad, but then you can just move on. And in any case, you'll definitely save money. And here's a big one, and this is not going to apply to everybody. A lot of folks coming here are looking to stay for, let's say, 3 to 6 months, and I get that, a year maybe, I don't know. But if it fits your plans and your finances, historically in Bali, long-term leases, okay, have been a thing, okay? Very difficult for foreigners to purchase land here. In fact, it's actually illegal for foreigners to own land here. There are ways that you can, in effect, own it. I'm not going to get into it in this video. There's probably a little bit of risk associated with that. But what you can do is a long-term lease, and by long-term, I mean out to 20, 25 years. Even more, okay, and everything, 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, okay. So it used to be that you go to an owner or a landlord, and they'd want that 20 or 25 years, and it'd be very difficult to go, say, for 6 months. Nowadays, you can't. There's an oversupply of everything from villas to apartments to everything else here in Bali, okay. So they're more flexible, willing to negotiate. All right.
In a nutshell, Bali property owners and managers used to expect 6 months minimum terms paid up front for rentals and leases. Imagine paying for, say, 25 years in advance. Today you can go month to month for many properties. However, if you can pay years in advance, you will pay a fraction on a per month basis of what you'll pay for 6 months or less. If you're thinking a 5-year term, start by negotiating a month-to-month price, then ask how much they want for 60 months. This 2-step negotiation tactic could have you paying 1/2 or less of the original asking price, depending on the term and other factors.
If you can go longer, you might want to be here for a few months, make sure you like it, but have in mind that, look, you might be ready to plop down some cash for a year or 2 or 3 years. I have a lot of friends who have done this, and an interesting thing that happens if you do this is that people it becomes a way that you don't necessarily have to spend all year in Bali. If you enter into a contract for 3 to 5 years or even more, and it's $300, $400, $500 a month, for a nice place, you might be able to stay here for 6 months a year or something, and then spend the rest of the time in Australia or wherever you might have your existing home, assuming you keep it and don't move to Bali full time. So just something to think about. These and I have met a lot of people who have done this. A multiple year rental can change the math such that you can maintain residences in multiple places without breaking the bank. My final 2 tips: take your time and don't try to get something in the first 3 days. Okay, it'd be nice if you find that perfect house, but give it a few days, and if it takes a week, that's okay. If you're staying 3 to 6 months or a year or more, the experience of 6 months or a year in Canggu is going to be completely different from 6 months or a year in Sanur or Ubud, for that matter, or down on the Bukit Peninsula. Okay, give yourself some time, because again, I just can't state it any simpler. This is one of those places where the prices vary enough to where you will be rewarded the more energy you put into looking around, the looking around phase. Now, this leads me into my final tip that I promised you that probably isn't going to make me any friends with local landowners or property managers or people charged with renting Bali villas. And I have to say this because I've just spoken to a lot of readers or interacted with a lot of readers on wagefreedom.com. They see the prices online, and you can tell they're just sort of figuring that that's pretty much what the going price is going to be. Whatever you see online is not the on the ground rate here. Okay, if they say $1,500 US a month, it's not $1,500 US a month. That is the starting price. $1,500 a month might end up being $1,000 a month for you. Okay, and in any case, if they say $1,500, you don't want to come back with $1,300. It's got to be $900. Okay, and just to feel them out, because it could end up being $1,000, but you're not going to get there if you come back with $1,100 or $1,200. You have to put on your Asia bargaining hat and realize that that there's been overbuilding around here, and basically it's the way things are here anyway. Everything is almost everything is negotiable, especially when it comes to price. It's probably far more negotiable than what you're used to. So bargain accordingly. If you have any questions at all about renting Bali villas, just please leave them in the comments. I'm not an agent or anything, but I have a ton of friends who have rented Bali villas in Canggu and Seminyak, rented villas in Ubud, Bali, and I'm happy to share what I know. I enjoy answering people's questions about moving to Bali and supporting yourself using the internet once you get here. If you've gotten value out of this video, I'd really appreciate a like, or just go ahead and subscribe to my channel and hit the little bell right next to the red button, because YouTube will notify you every time I put out a new video. So again, Tom from Wage Freedom, and thank you very, very much for watching.